Good evening. So this evening we're going to be talking a little bit about one of my favorite places on earth, and that is Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. If you've watched the channel for any amount of time, you know that we spent quite a bit of time in Gettysburg. Gettysburg, historically, the reason that the battle is fought there is you have all of these roads that lead to this town that's going to draw in the Army of Northern Virginia, and it's going to draw in the Army of the Potomac. And figuratively, when you're talking about history, I would also say that all roads lead to Gettysburg. And a few years ago, Andrew Dalton, who is the director of the Adams County Historical Society, reached out to me with a pretty interesting idea that he and some others had come up with to have a film festival in the town of Gettysburg. It is in its third year coming up, and this year is going to be around the theme of the 80th anniversary of VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day. So anyway, this evening we have two of the organizers of the film festival that we are going to be chatting with. I don't know what we're going to talk about. We're going to just talk about whatever happens to come up. And then we have another guest who's going to be popping in later in the show who is also tied in with the Gettysburg Film Festival. So go ahead and bring in buddy Andrew Dalton, the Adams County Historical Society, and Jake Borrett, both Gettysburg natives. So, Andrew, so it's kind of a funny thing. I heard about you long before I met you. When did you become director of the Adams County Historical Society?
2019. So I grew up here, went to Gettysburg College, and then took over just after graduating.
Okay, all right. So that would have been about the time that I started the YouTube channel and made my first trip to Gettysburg. But I heard these stories about the new director of the Adams County Historical Society, and he was a young guy. And the stories I heard talked about how, like, as a little kid, was kind of running the show and showing people around and things like that. What was your history with the?
I don't know about that, but I've always loved this place. I don't know. I guess when you grow up here, it's hard to not see it and immerse yourself in it. And my dad used to take me out on the battlefield a lot. And, we would take pictures of the monuments and, go on some ranger guided programs. And I eventually, started doing some research on local history and found my way through the doors of the Adams County Historical Society. And I just fell in love with the place. We've got more than 1 million historical artifacts in our collection and, all kinds of stories that each one tells. And so it's kind of like an endless, treasure hunt. Trying to piece together some of these incredible, stories and pieces of our community. So we built our new museum Beyond the Battle and opened in 2023. Ran a pretty large capital campaign, and we were able to save our collection that was really in horrible danger and at risk in our old facility. And then in the process of that, Jake reached out to Ken Burns, and Jake and Ken go back quite a long ways, and I'll let him tell more of that story. But Ken came in at a really critical moment and helped us with our capital campaign, and in the process, kind of laid the groundwork for him to come to Gettysburg and start this, what we didn't think would be a tradition, but a tradition that we now have of the Gettysburg Film Festival.
Yeah, and so Jake, you're also from Gettysburg originally, and having you on here is a little bit intimidating because I'm a YouTube monkey and you're like a legit filmmaker.
This is an honor to be part of this, JD. Thank you.
Now your dad, from what I understand, I've never met him, and I don't think the two of us have ever really talked about it. From what I understand, your dad's kind of a local legend around Gettysburg. What's his connection with the town?
My dad was a professor at Gettysburg College for about 30 years. He founded the Civil War Institute, Lincoln Scholar, Civil War specialist in Gettysburg. So it's a good place to do that. But we moved here when I was a very little kid when he got the job at Gettysburg College. And I grew up here, immersed in Civil War, Gettysburg, Lincoln. My dad's originally an immigrant, refugee from Hungary, came over when Russia invaded Hungary in 1956. He lived through the Nazis. His family was destroyed. He got out with his sister and lived through the Stalinist era. And as a teenager, came to the United States, fell in love with the U.S., fell in love with Abraham Lincoln, studied him, and became really a world-renowned expert. He's published multiple books, edited, written on Abraham Lincoln, given tours to, as we like to say, from the President of the United States to Moses, aka Charlton Heston. And so I was around for a lot of that. So I grew up, very much immersed in the Civil War. And so was here, went to high school here, same high school. Andrew and I both graduated from Gettysburg High School. Go Warriors. And art, but nonetheless, Warriors. And then I was in New York City for most of my professional career, working in documentary film, not always historical films. And as you know, JD, media has evolved so much in the past 20, 30 years with digital and internet and so forth. And we're witnessing that right now. And so, doing historical documentary films. And then, got to know Ken through my dad's work with the Civil War, through my work with historical documentaries. And, it's been a long, I guess at this point, multi-decade relationship.
Yeah, I remember going through the Beyond the Battle Museum, and there at the very end, there are photos of different presidents, and I had a chance to go in and kind of preview the museum. And I was standing there looking at all the photos, and in one of them, I'm like, holy crud, that's Jake. So what
mugshot or the other one?
Huh?
The mugshot or the other one?
Oh, yeah. What are some memories that stand out from being out on the battlefield with your dad and some of these, I don't know, well-known historic figures now?
Yeah, well, that was a really unique when you're talking about a picture with George W. Bush when he was president. And so, again, that was towards the end of my dad's professional career. And long story short, Karl Rove was a close advisor of W, wanted W to come to Gettysburg and do a tour with my dad. And so they set it up. I mean, it takes a long time. It took like 6 years to do this, or 7 years, to get, the president of it a couple hours availability to come up from DC. Ironically, it was right between when John McCain accepted the nomination of his party and W was not at the convention. And the next day was when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. It was the beginning of the Great Recession. So in retrospect, it was a really historic moment in the United States.
Wow.
So he comes up and, it was stunning, and you don't know he's coming. Obviously, he can always be called off for a million different reasons that the president has something more important to do than tour Gettysburg with us. But, he comes up, we kind of we know he's probably coming, and then you kind of get the word. And so we're all ready. I had come down from New York City and, go out, meet him at the Virginia Memorial where the Robert E. Lee statue is. And just one quick funny story. We live on an old Civil War farm where I grew up. So I live in the farmhouse. My parents are in a small cottage where my dad's quite elderly now. But we're still there, this old farm, and we found a lot of Civil War bullets on the farm, as Andrew can attest. He can probably tell you about his finds here. But there was multiple Confederate bodies buried here. It was a Confederate hospital. It was also an Underground Railroad stop. So there's these artifacts from the farm, and my dad wanted to show one to the president. So we go there, and of course, there's a huge amount of security. The biggest gun and the biggest binoculars I've ever seen in my life are on the vehicles that arrive first. And it's a whole sort of train of vehicles that show up. But before they do, they put you through security. They have a wand, test you out, and my dad is in front of me. And I should say that my dad had a stroke relatively recently, and so his speaking was somewhat compromised. And he would get more or less nervous, almost like a stutter, because of this, on top of a Hungarian accent, mind you, because he's from Hungary. And he's a professor anyway, so he's professor talk always. Andrew can attest to that as a kid of a professor. We get there, and so my dad's in front of me as we're going through the security. You put your hands up just like the airport or something. The wand goes over, and it hits my dad's jean pocket. Beep, 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 beep. He pulls out he always has a little jackknife. Just always, he went to college in South Dakota. He grew up always have a jackknife on you. So always had it, my knife. You can't have a knife if you're meeting the president. And you're this is like, obviously it's heightened nerves. This is a very nervous moment. And then he goes down another like inch and a half down his jean pocket. Beep, 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 beep. My bullet. And he pulls out the Civil War, mini ball that was found on our farm where Barksdale and Semmes brigades had used as a hospital. And of course, you can't have a bullet when you meet the president either, as much as it was 150 years old. So that's the one story I can tell. There was a lot of funny moments there. But yeah, it was it was a really neat experience where you're around all these amazing people that were fascinated with Gettysburg, understood the importance of the United States in history and came through constantly to the college, to the Civil War Institute, to the National Park and the new visitor center and so forth. And it was just really wonderful to be around, whether they were Hollywood people, political people, Supreme Court justices, the president, and all sorts of scholars and writers. Of course, Ken Burns came through many times. I mean, this place changed his life with the Civil War series on PBS. And it's just and foreign people too, like foreign dignitaries. So it was always a really interesting place. And so that was almost by osmosis instilled at me at a very early age of how vital Gettysburg is and how important it is to come here and bring people, everyday Joes and really important people need to come to Gettysburg all the time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So Andrew, I'm a bit of a movie junkie. I mean, the reason that this channel even exists is because of my love of two things. One is film and media and also history. If there's another history themed film festival out there, I'm unaware of it. So this is, as far as I can tell, kind of a groundbreaking thing. But what do you think it is that makes Gettysburg like the ideal location for something like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone's heard of it, and I'll say when we started talking about this idea, I just assumed there must be another film festival in the United States that's devoted to American history. There's so many festivals for just about everything you could imagine, and certainly many famous film festivals and small film festivals and community, or college affiliated film festivals. But it seems like there really isn't another example of this, and I don't think anyone would be surprised if they learned that the American History Film Festival is happening in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a place where millions of people visit every year for history. And I think it speaks to the layers of history we have. I mean, it's not just the Civil War. President Eisenhower lived here. This was the only property he and Mamie ever owned. He used Gettysburg as many other foreign presidents, after him, as a place for learning and for diplomacy and for reflection. And so, our history here, goes back decades before. In fact, I think Eisenhower, one of his favorite quotes that speaks to us, locally, is that, the history of this area goes back 100 years before and 100 after the Battle of Gettysburg. And it was made on quiet farms and in village streets. And I just love that Eisenhower had this idea of not only his own place within the story here, but that the history, Gettysburg is a place where we can view all of American history through this kind of prism. And I think Ken Burns gave us a great quote at the last festival that if you, I'm sure I'll get the quote wrong, but if you throw a pebble in the pond of Gettysburg, it ripples out, to all of American history. So why not? Why not do this here? And, we've been thrilled at the response. Last year, every single event sold out. These folks are just so grateful to come here and be part of something, of real significance and weight and meaning. And, we're the generosity that Ken Burns has given to us and to Gettysburg through this event, which I should say benefits, exclusively nonprofit organizations here in Gettysburg. But their generosity to be part of it and people's, excitement to attend just made this, even more, of a noteworthy project, and having this next event coinciding with a really important anniversary associated with World War II allows us to kind of open up this new, branch of what, Gettysburg can do, and drawing in the Eisenhower connection and the Eisenhower family and Susan Eisenhower. I think it's going to be a really fun weekend.
So it's kind of walk me through the first 2 years of the film festival, because this is year 3 that we're coming up on. Like the first one was good, and then like there's this exponential ramping up that took place in year 2, and I think it's going to go even bigger in year 3. Walk me through those first 2 years.
Yeah, Jake, do you want to talk about how
Yeah,
this started?
sure. I mean, as Andrew mentioned, this started in the summer of 2020, as everyone can remember. It was a very contentious summer with pandemic and politics and all this stuff going on. I had just moved back to the old farm from New York City with my wife and kids, and Andrew was starting up this huge project to build a new home for the Historical Society and a new museum. I was starting to get involved with that, and we needed to put together a short video to promote that. And I reached out to Ken. Ken, would you be kind of our celebrity notes? Could you talk about what we're doing in Gettysburg? We could really use what you can bring to this. And he said, absolutely, within a few days, I believe, right? He turned it around. And then in the conversation, I said, you know what Gettysburg really needs is a Ken Burns Film Festival. And I fully expected him to say, I have a million things to do. I'm busy until 2045. I could never do it. But instead, he said, I love it. Lots to work out. And so that began working with Gettysburg College and President Uliano at the college, the Majestic Theater, which was then Jeffrey Gable was the head, and we started doing this film festival. Simultaneous, Andrew is building this museum. We're working on it together. You've seen a lot of the films we made there. And so this new museum's opening around the civilians of Gettysburg, and this festival is starting. And they literally, when Ken sets the dates of February 2023, that became the first tour of the new museum. So there's this double deadline of working with the Majestic Theater and Gettysburg College to do the first Ken Burns Film Festival, as it's called locally, and then this new museum. And then Ken comes. It's a film festival really celebrating his works. We brought a lot of his collaborators. These are Emmy Award winning and renowned cinematographers and writers and so forth, musicians, Jay Unger, Molly Mason, Jeff Ward, Buddy Squires, a lot of great people here. It was very entirely focused on Ken's films. And we did it, sold out, like very successful, really exciting. I mean, we did some really amazing things. Susan Eisenhower did something on D-Day with Tracy Potts of the Eisenhower Institute. We had Kevin Richardson of the Central Park Five. He screened that film with Alicia Sanders. And we had some really great events there, and people just loved it. And then Ken wrote me this really wonderful thing and basically wanted to come back. And so then it was like, Ken Burns wants to come back and do it again. And so we started planning to do it again. And then Andrew had opened the museum and was really involved with that. At that point, you're about to meet the new director of the Majestic. Brett is a great guy and is not even into his first year yet, but is a central part of doing this for the town and for the theater and the college. And so we started to plan the second one. And again, it was very Ken centric, but in doing that, we're like, well, who else should we invite? And so we started to think, who could we put on stage? And Sam Waterston came up. He, of course, plays the voice of Lincoln in the Civil War, as well as Thomas Jefferson in Ken's film on Thomas Jefferson. And around the time he was coming, sort of separately, Andrew was having conversations with Martin Sheen, who turns out, although he's never worked with Ken, is a huge fan of Ken, and Martin Sheen wanted to come. So then all of a sudden we had Sam Waterston and Martin Sheen coming. And to us, it's like that's President Bartlett, or that's Apocalypse Now, or that's, that's obviously the Lincoln voice in Law and Order. But these two great Hollywood icons come, and they're on stage with Ken last year. And that was, and then we also, it was Susan Eisenhower was part of it. We had Sarah Botstein. And so again, it was the art of Ken Burns. It was mostly focused on Ken's films. And that was more events, as you said, ramped up. And then stuff sold out. People wanted to do more. And then Ken, we didn't think he'd come back. He's, of course, has a new series on the American Revolution coming out. And he's on the road constantly from the beginning of this year through October. And we said, Ken, you're always invited. We're going to do this film festival again. We know you can't come. And he said, I'll be there. And of course, the only day he could be there, God bless his staff that was able to pull this off for him, was May 8th. Of course, May 8th is the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe. Yeah. And of course, war in Europe is in the news again, and war in Europe is one of the most significant events in American history. So we have Ken coming, and then we began planning. Brett Messenger at the Majestic comes in. Andrew and I are working together. And so now we're planning this whole new festival, and it's not exclusively World War II, but you can't really shy away from an anniversary like that. With Ken
Right.
Burns, of course, he has 4 or 5 films that focus mostly on World War II. So that's kind of how the third festival has come about in the local level.
Here's what I have really enjoyed about the first two. When it comes to movies, anytime I finish watching a movie, the first thing I do is I go to the deleted scenes and I go to YouTube or the extras on the Blu-ray or whatever, and I want to see how was this made. I want to know all the behind the scenes stuff. And with these first two film festivals, the first one, mostly with Ken Burns, and then last year Sam Waterston and Martin Sheen, kind of getting a glimpse behind the curtain and hearing these guys in person tell stories was phenomenal. I don't know, Andrew, you have anything to add to that?
Oh, just it was really exciting. We had no idea we were going to be able to to let this grow and into a place where we're now able to kind of look thematically, not just through the lens of one filmmaker or one film, but to look at a more comprehensive theme. With World War II, some of my favorite movies, are related to World War II. Saving Private Ryan, it's just a classic, iconic film that we're going to be screening. Ken's series, The War, is just unbelievable. We're going to be screening selections from that. Band of Brothers, we're screening. These are things that have just had such an impact on American culture, and to be able to bring, like you said, the filmmakers, but also some of the actors, some of the people involved with these projects that talk about, what was the research like for this? What was, who did you talk to actual veterans? And we're going to have some actual veterans at the festival as well. But the behind the scenes of this stuff is just so interesting for people and exciting. And, I think meaningful too. I mean, it's rare to have these things kind of rescreened after 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. And in fact, and Jake has made this point, it's actually really unique to have Ken's films screened in a theater, because they're almost always seen on television, people's homes. So to be sitting in a theater and seeing these, iconic documentary films on the big screen, it's just a really moving experience for people to be there together. And I think there will be a weight to this that's different because of the anniversary and because of the fact that we'll have some veterans there, and we can really stop for a moment and reflect on these stories.
Well, that's a perfect segue to bring in our third guest here. So Brett, you and I met, let's see, about 20 minutes ago. And you are the director of the Majestic Theater in Gettysburg. And being a history guy, I have an extreme bias towards old stuff. I think new stuff is lame. I think old stuff is cool. And man, the Majestic, there are different venues where these screenings are taking place, but if I have to have a preference on one of them, man, I really enjoyed watching these films at the Majestic. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of this theater?
Absolutely. The Majestic Theater was built and opened in 1925. So for the last 99 and a half, it has been Gettysburg in South Central Pennsylvania's home for the performing arts and film. For the last 20 years, it has been Gettysburg College's conduit to the community. And it's where the campus and the community converge for meaningful cultural experiences. Notably, this is where our community experienced the war through war reels 80 years ago. And where 60 years ago, you would catch Ike and Mamie sitting in our theater watching films themselves. So it's interesting, not only as a space that exhibits these films, but as a container of history in itself.
Yeah, so I can't remember if it was the first year or the second year. I went to a screening of the Ken Burns film Central Park 5. I think that was the one that I went and watched.
It would have been year one, I think.
Was that year one? Okay. So I'd never seen that one before. I'd seen a lot of Ken Burns' work. Hadn't seen that one. but watching that film in the theater was a completely different experience. And I'm a big movie theater guy. If I'm watching a documentary or a film or something like that at home on my couch, invariably here's what I end up doing is I'm just like any kid or anybody else right now. I'm kind of checking my phone every once in a while. It's buzzing or something like that. You get into a theater and lights go down and you're completely locked in. What is kind of your take on the value of the theater experience?
Yeah, it's community, right? I mean, we do so much of experiencing things on screens in solitude. It's a totally different thing to sit in community with your friends and neighbors and to gasp together, to laugh together, to experience delight and sadness as a communal effort. It's, in the Brechtian sense, the spectacle. And that's the sort of thing that's really special. This past summer, we had 700 together, which is an experience I had never had in my entire life. But it really makes a huge difference to experience, especially on-screen programming with your friends and neighbors in that way. There's nothing like it.
Well, and here's something that I like. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's go to the website of the Gettysburg Film Festival and just take a look at what we've got going on this year. All right, let me make sure that I got it up. I have to switch back and forth between tabs. I did a live stream the other day and I went to share the screen, but forgot to hit the button and then was just looking like an idiot for about 15 minutes. But anyway, all right. So you guys can see the website?
Looks good. Yep.
Okay.
I'm looking at my phone too.
All right. So here, this was one of what we're looking at right now is just a still of one of my favorite moments from the festival last year with Martin Sheen, Sam Waterston, Ken Burns. And I don't know who the guy on the right is there, but so yeah, Jake, who was the moderator and did an excellent job. But this is an opportunity to get these personalities in the same room together that few people are ever going to have a chance to witness, and it's ramping up even bigger this year. So let's take a look at.
If you just click right on the 2025.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. Sorry.
Sorry.
All right. So again, theme this year is victory in World War II. And right off the bat in bold, I'm seeing some pretty big names. Talk to me about some of the names that people might be familiar with who are going to be at the festival this year.
Well, the first day is again, it is May 8th. That's the anniversary, and that's the one day of the year that Ken could get to Gettysburg. And so Ken Burns will be there, and then he's going to do two events. The morning event is really special. That's going to be looking at Ken's work, but it's with his daughter, Sarah Burns, and her husband, David McMahon. They've made multiple films, including Central Park 5, which you just mentioned. They've been wanting to get here, but they couldn't come the first year because they were in Italy making the film that we're going to go show clips of, Leonardo da Vinci, which is the first film that Ken and Florentine Films, his company, have made that's not American-centric. And so that'll be exciting. They're amazing. And that'll sort of kick it off on Thursday morning. And then in a really awesome afternoon at the Majestic, we're going to have Ken on stage with Anna DeVere Smith. And if you're not familiar with her work, she's sort of a tour de force of, she's really she's a playwright, she's an actress, but what she does in a lot of her work is called verbatim theater, where she interviews people from historical events and then plays them on stage. And so she's done work about the Los Angeles riot. She's done work about in Crown Heights, and won all sorts of awards. But in some ways, the most amazing connection is Anna DeVere Smith is the great granddaughter of a Gettysburgian named Basil Biggs, who famously, among other things, was one of the people leading teams to bury bodies in the cemetery after the battle where Abraham Lincoln spoke. He was a free black man, and most personally, he actually lived. He was a tenant farmer in the farmhouse where I'm living with my family now. So I have this really personal connection.
Oh, wow.
I diverge from the story. So Anna DeVere Smith, this amazing playwright, is going to be on stage with Ken Burns, and we're going to talk about how do you turn history into story. And they do it in very different ways, but they're accolades beyond, limitless. And so we're going to talk with them. And then there's a lot of other screenings. And then the Thursday night, that'll be in the large auditorium at the Gettysburg High School, my alma mater, Andrew's alma mater, local boys. And so that's going to be Ken, and we're still working out exactly who the guests are. So it'll be Ken with several special guests, but that's going to be very focused on May 8th, victory in Europe. And we will have a clip reel with Ken's work on World War II, including the war and the Roosevelts. He has just done a film a few years ago on the Holocaust. So those are the big events on that Friday, which is, again, the Ken Burns-centric day. Andrew, you want to talk about sorry, that was Thursday.
Yeah. Friday, sort of Martin Sheen day. We at Martin Sheen is just the nicest, most lovely person I think I've ever had the pleasure of working with in a very small capacity when he was here last year. But he's coming back, and one of the most important roles he's played that he talked about when he was here last year was Eddie Slovik, the private who was executed for desertion in World War II in Europe. And so that film, I believe, came out in the mid-1970s. It was a television film, but he was nominated for several awards from that project. And so that is really that film is the reason why, he's coming back to look at that story and for him to reflect on what it was like to play that role. That'll be in the evening. But since he's here, we wanted to do something fun with him to really kind of focus on the many historical and kind of historically adjacent, let's call it, roles that he's played over the years, from RFK to JFK to J. Edgar Hoover to, a captain in Vietnam, in, the just, incredible and sort of notorious film Apocalypse Now, which I'm sure many people have seen. I'm missing quite a few, but he's had so many of these roles. Of course, I missed perhaps the closest one to home, Robert E. Lee in the movie Gettysburg. Yeah. But we'll be going through kind of a retrospective of his various historical, personifications throughout these various projects, with a little bit of President Bartlett sprinkled in at the end, I think, just because we can't ignore that very famous chapter that's, definitely adjacent to real history. And actually, Anna DeVere Smith, who's moderating that, was in The West Wing with Martin Sheen, and also in The American President with Martin Sheen. So she and he are quite close, and I think that'll be a really fun event. So that's in the morning at the Majestic, and then the evening is that we'll be doing a discussion about the execution of Eddie Slovik, and following that with a screening. So both of those events will just be really fantastic. And then we are really thrilled about what's happening that afternoon at the Majestic. And just so glad that this gentleman can be here for the festival. Robert Edsel, who's the New York Times bestselling author of The Monuments Men, which of course became this major Hollywood, successful feature film with George Clooney and a kind of a cast of other A-listers. We don't think George Clooney's coming, but Robert Edsel is just a fascinating, brilliant author, historian. So he's going to be speaking about that film, the creation of the film, his work establishing the Monuments Men and Women Foundation to honor the efforts to recover, the greatest art in the world during the Second World War. And his new project actually is focused on the American cemetery in Belgium, right? Am I getting that right, Jake?
Netherlands. It's in the Netherlands.
Yeah, sorry. The Netherlands American Cemetery. I'm not a World War II scholar, so I probably will say a few things that will upset people. But anyway, this cemetery is just a fascinating story of the bond between the community there that they actually adopted the headstones, the stories and identities of the American soldiers buried there, and have just created this incredible relationship with families and in caring for these graves. So that's his latest project. It's a book called Remember Us that is coming out, I think, in April. And we'll be doing a little bit on that, but more broadly, just about his work in this field of kind of cultural preservation of Europe's art, and with Susan Eisenhower, who obviously is the granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower, Mamie Eisenhower, and Susan will be speaking and adding quite a bit to that regarding Eisenhower's own personal conviction about saving culture and art in Europe. And in fact, had it not been for Eisenhower, a lot of this would never have been saved. So that ties in a little bit actually with Ken's work because of the Leonardo da Vinci film that they've just put out, and so there's a little bit of a through line there. But Friday's a packed schedule. There are a lot of screenings listed below. And then Saturday's kind of a more Hollywood focused day. We'll be doing Band of Brothers in the morning, which is going to be really exciting. I know you're going to be part of that, JD.
Yeah.
And in the afternoon, we're doing Stephen Lang and Beyond Glory. So that's Stephen Lang's one-man show, I guess you could call it, that was adapted into a film where he portrays Medal of Honor recipients who were in combat, including a few in World War II. And then we're capping off Saturday with an event that's really focused on, the reason why all this is happening in Gettysburg, Dwight D. Eisenhower. And Susan Eisenhower will be doing kind of a really personal reflection on what was her grandfather like, how did he approach these, incredible decision points, and how did he win the Second World War along with, millions of others who were involved. But we'll be screening after that one of the Eisenhower family's favorite films, as she has told me, Ike Countdown to D-Day, which stars Tom Selleck. And I can't remember how old the film is, but it's not a new film, but it's a beloved film. And so we'll be kind of ending the public program on Saturday with that.
Yeah. I'll add to that, on Saturday, if we scroll down, you can see all of the different films that are going to be screened at different places in Gettysburg, including the Majestic. This is going to be a rare opportunity to see some of these films on the big screen. So like Saving Private Ryan, for example, I went and saw that when I was 17 or 18 years old, and that was the only experience that I had watching it on the big screen. From then on, it was DVD. So now, like kids or younger people who maybe didn't have that experience can have that theater experience that they maybe didn't have before. Also, there's going to be on Saturday some opportunities following the Band of Brothers event where you'll be able to do a meet and greet at the Gettysburg Museum of History. They're going to be available to meet people and sign autographs and things like that. So it's beyond just watching films and things like that. There's going to be some very unique opportunities that are interspliced in here, which is incredibly exciting. Are you guys good to take a few questions?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Here was one from our buddy 6 Questions Lentz. Let's see. I saw there was an outside or outdoors screening of a movie this year. Can you talk about that? Is that what do we got going on there?
Yeah, so that's actually kind of a pre-event to the festival. On Wednesday, May 7th at 8:00, we're going to be doing an outdoor Cinema Under the Stars event with the Gettysburg Film Commission. Actor Bo Brinkman will be there to introduce the screening, and the film will be The Great Escape. And that's, a classic, 1960s classic.
Love that movie.
It's going to be really fun. Hopefully the weather will cooperate, but our plan is to have that outside on Seminary Ridge, just as the sun is setting to start the festival off. And so if people arrive, early, they can head out to the ridge and enjoy that film.
All right. Is there going to be showings of JD's work on a big screen? Andrew keeps twisting my arm, but I don't know.
We will at some point. We will force you to do that. I think.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Here. Do what?
We showed your work a little bit last year, right?
I don't think so. Did we?
They spoke. I don't think there was any kind of clip reel with that
We
one.
didn't
but
screen it with that.
yeah, we will. We absolutely want to. I've been angling for that.
Yeah. Hey, here's Clint Burns. Hey, here's Martin Sheen. Hey, here's Band of Brothers. Oh, here's this redneck with a YouTube channel. Yeah. Another question here. I saw that there were quite a few events featuring Band of Brothers. How were you able to get some of those involved in the series to do this? So I can maybe answer part of that. One is formed a pretty good relationship with Matt Leach, who played Floyd Talbert in the series Band of Brothers. He has an organization called We Happy Few 506, and all those guys kind of keep in contact. And I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but there are a few names that are officially listed. There's also some unofficial additions that are probably coming. So we just can't officially list them yet, but there's going to be more. And John Orloff, I talked to him on Twitter.
He will be here. Yep.
Yeah. But you guys have more of a connection with him.
Yeah, John Orloff, we reached out. He actually was in Gettysburg for the World War II event at the Eisenhower farm not long ago and loved it and is coming back. He's the writer of 2 episodes, I believe, of Band of Brothers, and we're screening both of those episodes. He'll be speaking at those screenings. And then he is, of course, the writer of Masters of the Air, which I can't get enough of, the new Apple TV Plus series from last year. He really devoted, I think, a decade of his life to the research for that. And I know he's worked with Tom Hanks and, a lot of others, Spielberg. He's really going to be a fascinating person to listen to about, both of these projects, but in particular Band of Brothers. And then, we expect, we have not announced it yet, but I heard today that it's a sure thing that Graham Yost, who is also one of the writers on Band of Brothers, will be joining us. So we're excited about that too. And we have hopefully a few other tricks up our sleeve if we can, get some more.
A few more surprises for that.
Yeah.
People are going to enjoy. I'm really looking forward to that one, as I am all of them. All right. You guys have anything to add as we close out here?
Come to Gettysburg. Join us. That's fun. It is. You've referenced this, but to be in Gettysburg, to be in a theater like the Majestic, and to watch films of this significance, especially on this anniversary, but you're literally right next door to the train station where Lincoln arrived in Gettysburg to deliver the Gettysburg Address. You're entirely surrounded by obviously Civil War history in Lincoln, but also Eisenhower, and Eisenhower's career is much bigger than World War II. So it's a really rich historical place to be with people that love history, that love movies, and watch it on the big screen together and sort of share in that sense of fellowship in the American story. It's really powerful. So join us.
Well, and as you can see, Wreck Diver 59 just bought his tickets. I can tell you from the past couple of years that tickets tend to go pretty fast. So it's going to be an amazing event. I would jump on it soon. And in addition to all of the films, like you said, it's Gettysburg. So you're completely surrounded by history. So even when there aren't events going on, you can hit the battlefield and soak it all in. Be a good trip for the family. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you, JD. We're so thrilled that you can be here and part of this again this year. I think it's going to be great. You've contributed so much to the body of work, around World War II and how people remember it. So, you're right up there with these other folks who've, are doing all this important work. So I think it's going to be really fun. The website's gettysburgfilmfestival.org, in case we didn't say it enough. But we are thrilled to be working together here to make this possible, and hope to see everybody in May.
All right. Brett, tell us what's going on at the Majestic when the festival's not going on. What can people look forward to there?
Well, we are a busy place. We're home to the college's Sunderman Conservatory of Music, where students are rehearsing 5 nights a week and performing here regularly. We have hosted and continue to host luminary artists, historians, and craftspeople from around the world. And next year, we'll be celebrating our centennial season with some really special performances and exhibitions of films that really celebrate our role in part of this wonderful community.
Awesome.
So we look forward to welcoming you here very soon.
Yeah, it's a beautiful theater, and if you look at the thumbnail for this video, that is an old photo from, I think, the opening of the Majestic in 1925.
1925, November 14th.
Yeah, I ripped that off from the Adams County Historical Society website.
We'll never catch you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and close things out with one last promo for the Gettysburg Film Festival. Again, GettysburgFilmFestival.com. Go sign up, and we are looking forward to seeing you there.
I have been making films about the U.S. for 50 years, but I've also been making films about us.
I think what you demonstrated is that America's gotten through a lot.
I suppose all roads lead to Gettysburg.
A place where we as a country have looked backward and looked forward.
To tell the Battle of Gettysburg is an awesome responsibility there. I mean, because people care.
And so I just started off by me asking a couple simple questions and then doing my own research.
You were at the monument in the middle of the night?
We filmed there.
Yeah, but that was TV.